Hi, this is Jonathan Willbanks with the Optimal Being video blog presented by ConsciousLifeNews.com. And joining me today also is my four-legged friend Shadow because he indignantly refused to get off the couch when I sat down to record this. Oh, and now he wants down. Okay, well, so today we're going to talk about salt. This is one of the most misunderstood nutrients in our food supply, and there are a lot of misconceptions around it. So we've all heard about how bad salt can be, that it can raise blood pressure, among many other things. We all know that it causes bloating and water retention. And all of the negative things that you've heard about salt are true, but this is a qualified statement. They are true of refined table salt. Now, what does refined salt mean? What is refined salt? Well, refined salt, so all salt comes from the sea. All salt is sea salt. So in that sense, the term sea salt itself is meaningless. It initially comes from the ocean, and 99.9% of the salt in our food supply is then heat processed. They extract all of the other natural minerals and trace minerals that are paired with that salt, and they isolate the standalone sodium chloride. Then they will add in all sorts of nasty fillers, like anti-caking agents, like I believe it's sodium aluminum silicate, and that's not something that really anybody should be consuming. You do not need any amount of aluminum in your diet to be healthy. They also they will bleach it very frequently, and then we'll add in trace amounts of like iodine, which ironically is masks a huge problem that we have with iodine deficiency in the West in particular, because the amount of iodine that's in there is just enough to prevent goiter, although even that we're seeing is on the rise, but not enough to support optimal health, optimal levels of iodine for health. So we've got a huge epidemic of thyroid problems as a result of this. But because this salt is isolated in an unnatural form, your body cannot use it in the way that it needs to. It doesn't necessarily recognize it as organic sodium. So paradoxically, a lot of Americans are consuming way too much salt but are at the same time sodium deficient. And the trace minerals that are paired naturally with other salt, in real, true sea salt that's been unrefined, there's about 80 different trace minerals. We're very lacking in those. So there are some really good ways. If you like salt, there are some very healthy ways to add it back into your diet that will actually improve your health. You can turn salt from a liability into a health asset. But the key is to use unrefined salt. And there are three great forms that I would recommend that are all very common and widely available. Now, one of them is becoming more and more popular, and you're seeing all over the place, and that is pink Himalayan crystal salt. And pink Himalayan crystal salt is unrefined. As a general rule, you don't want your salt to be white. If your salt's white, even if it says sea salt, it's been refined and it's not what you want. It's not going to support your health. This pink Himalayan salt is about $12 a pound at Whole Foods. This whole bag was a pound, so that's quite a bit. But there are actually two other better solutions, in my opinion, and my favorite is Redmond's Real Salt, and you can see I have a little sample shaker right here. It's actually a brand. You can buy it in the shakers pre-packaged, and it's pretty expensive. It's going to be, a shaker, like a 4-ounce shaker, I think is like $6 or $7. But I know my local Whole Foods has started selling it in bulk for about $2.99 a pound. And again, this is a pound. So, excuse me, this is 2 pounds. So this would be $6 worth of real salt. And why do I like real salt? Well, one, you'll notice it is pink. And the color gives you a clue to the minerals that are contained therein, so this is going to be somewhat similar to the pink Himalayan salt. It does have 80 different trace minerals in it, but I like it because it is a brand, it's standardized, and it's purity tested, so you know exactly what you're getting. There are no standards for the pink Himalayan salt, so there's always the potential risk that it's going to be contaminated with possibly heavy metals or other chemicals, and you just don't know. Now, that being said, you're much better off consuming pink Himalayan crystal salt than refined Morton's table salt. But for the price, for $2.99 a pound, I think the real salt is great. It also tastes better. All of the salts that I'm recommending, especially if you like food, you'll notice that they taste much better. They will not make you gain water weight. In fact, if you can cut out processed salt from your diet and switch entirely to unrefined salt, within about a week, you'll probably notice about 3 to 5 pounds of water weight that disappears. Now, the downside is as soon as you go eat a salty meal, if you go have a Big Mac or you go eat out, then that water weight's going to come right back. But it is a nice little perk. The salt improves your energy levels, improves your mood, and can actually lower blood pressure if it is the unrefined salt. Remember, you're getting about 80 different trace minerals with this, and it's organic and bioavailable sodium that your body can use. I'm jumping around a little bit here. I tend to do that. But the other great form of salt is gray Celtic sea salt. It's grayer, and kind of like red and white wine go better with different dishes. I find that there are subtle differences in the salt that make them go better with other dishes. This gray salt, I think, is great with seafood, whereas I use the real salt for meats. But it's another healthy salt, and again, it's also a brand, so it is somewhat standardized and is quality and purity tested. And I believe this is a pound. This was $6 or $7 at Whole Foods. So when you compare it to a huge bottle of Morton's table salt for 99 cents, it seems really expensive. But you think, how long is this salt going to last you? Even if you were to quadruple your salt intake, this is still going to last most people several months. I also add a pinch of it into my reverse osmosis water. I have a reverse osmosis water filter, and our tap basically produces bottled water, which is great because it removes a lot of the impurities. But the trade-off to that is that it also removes the minerals. Now, the minerals that are in the tap water aren't necessarily minerals that you want in the first place. But the downside is it takes the pH from about a 7, 7.2 all the way down to about a 6, which is because it's a logarithmic scale. It's about 100 times more acidic than actual tap water. So you want to restore some of that alkalinity. And there's a few ways that I do that, but one of my techniques is to add a pinch of unrefined salts into the water. Not enough to taste. It doesn't affect the taste at all. In fact, I think it makes it, if it does, it makes it taste better. You'll notice on bottles like Dasani, it will say purified with reverse osmosis and minerals added in for taste. And that little pinch of salt, or 1 or 2 pinches, will give it that bottled water taste that's very satisfying, and will also help replenish certain electrolytes and trace minerals in your body, as well as, like I said again, help rebalance that pH a bit. So salt is really important to our health. It's been demonized and vilified, and rightly so when the conversation is framed in the context of refined table salt. But unfortunately, most doctors and most people have no idea of the distinction between refined and unrefined salt. And this really is one of the most important things that you can do for your health. I consider it one of the basics. And it is the easiest, it's the most cost-effective and easiest lifestyle change to make. If you were to do nothing else differently, but to switch your salt out and put this better tasting, healthier salt on your food, you'll be amazed at how much richer your food tastes, how it begins to rewire your palate. After a few months of consuming nothing but unrefined table salt, you'll go back to, you try to have Morton's, or you'll go out to a restaurant and the food will just be loaded with processed salt, or with refined salt, and it will taste almost metallic. This is a very common phenomenon that I've seen a lot of people experience as they make this transition. But that's great because there's a built-in reinforcement mechanism to keep you straight with the healthier salt, because once you get used to it, the unhealthy stuff just tastes awful to you. You won't crave it, you won't enjoy it, and if you stick with it consistently, I promise that you will begin to see these changes. And again, for the price, there's really no healthier or simpler health alternative I can recommend, and it's very hard to overdo it with anything resembling normal salt intake, or even what we would usually consider to be excessive salt intake. As long as you have normal, healthy kidney function, you can consume several grams of this a day, 6-7 grams a day, without any problems. So if you're one of those people who loves salt but considers it a guilty pleasure, then I strongly encourage you to salt your food as generously as you want, but with unrefined salt. That's really the key there. Well, there were a few other points that I was going to make, but I think that I've covered salt in enough depth for today. So if you have any questions, feel free to include them in the comment section on YouTube, or on this original article on Conscious Life News. Oh yes, and if you're interested in this topic and want to go more in depth, there's a book that I would highly recommend by Dr. David Brownstein, who is the director for the Center for Holistic Medicine, and he wrote an excellent book called Salt Your Way to Health. And you can Google that and find that book, Salt Your Way to Health, on his website. It's a great investment, and he's really one of the leading researchers in this field, and is where I've gotten a lot of my information, and have found it to just work extraordinarily well, not just for me, but for dozens of people that I've worked with and recommended this to. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you all are having a wonderful weekend, and until next time, be well.